Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yo, I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave.
Well, good evening, Nick. Within reason, of course. How are you? Before I ask you that, by the way, where are my manners? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, good morning, whenever you're watching this. My name is Ben. This is Chasing Dissent, and we are here live tonight with Nick Cotton. I don't know whether I should call him jacked or scum media or unwashed or all of the above or... Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Say all that again, because my audio cut you off. Now we're back.
Oh, no.
Now they can hear you.
Right. Oh, okay. I have to do a witty repertoire again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I have lots of names: unwashed, vile, news, scum media, and jacked. Because the more names I have, the bigger the section Hope Not Hate have to give me. And they are my bitch. They do what I say at this point.
Do you know what? Hope Not Hate are an odd institution. I find them. I call them Hate Not Hope because the way they act. I mean, we remember when we all sat on that barge and we had a good old laugh at the section that they gave you. Unlike the representatives of Hope Not Hate, I've actually met you, right? And I've spent more than one day with you. And I don't see a hateful bone in your body.
It's odd because, like, I mean, you're sort of the libertarian anarchist persuasion, like me, aren't you? Yeah. So I think the deal is, like, this is supposedly not a government organization, but it is. It's like a charity, but it's basically a wing of the state. And I think that the people that get these jobs weren't necessarily aiming for these jobs. This is just the job that they landed, and now they kind of have to care about it. Because that's what I've noticed. They don't like, because these people are meticulous researchers of people like Piers Corbyn, and they still have to paint him as evil. And it's like, after a certain amount of time, like looking at this guy, come on, you know,
right?
You know we're right,
right. Piers Corbyn just, if you ever listen to this, Piers, I'm sorry, but this is just my observation, having spent about 15 days with you, right? He just dodders from one place to the other and does. That's really what he does.
I know, but like during the thick of it, it was absolutely incredible. It got to the point because, yeah, I was within spitting distance of London. It was like, I don't know what to do today to save the world. Okay, I'll just go follow Piers. Whatever Piers is doing is probably the best thing I could be doing to save the world right now.
Yeah.
Just see what Piers is doing and follow him. Yeah, he was amazing.
Yeah, no, he was good fun as well. He would just turn up like with a battered old car with a bullhorn on the roof, sit outside Downing Street and start speaking through a bloody speaker.
Yeah, well, I wonder how important an element of that is. Obviously, we can't waste too much time. We got to get onto GB News fairly soon. But like, if you think about it, GB News is part of the fear porn, right? It's going to be continually feeding you at least part of the narrative, even if it's pretending to fight against it. And all of the TV, all the media, all that stuff coming from your Black Mirrors is there to set off those bits of your stress receptors and get you all alert. So I mean, people that were able to bring levity to it, I think we're actually like, yeah, don't underestimate that. It's so important. Don't be serious and have conferences all the time.
Well, I completely agree with you. And, you know, when we do get onto GB News, there are some personalities on GB News, and I won't name them tonight, but there are some personalities on there who will say one thing to me in private and something very different in public. Put it that way.
Well, wait, you know people, do you?
I don't know people, but they know me. and they'll come up to me in the street. I don't go out in the street anymore. They'll come up and talk to me in the street, and they'll act a certain way. And then when you see their public persona, they're completely different.
I've always prided myself on not being welcome in the club, because I identified, like, we talk in, there's such good people in the chat tonight that I recognize.
Yeah, I see some.
In, like, Abby's circle, she talks about the one big club, which is a reference to a George Carlin routine.
Yeah.
Where he says there's one big club and you ain't in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. And I always knew that. And I could see from, like, a long time off that Trigonometry were desperate to be in the big club, because that's the way that they, like, angle all their stuff. And certain people do this. They're just faced in that direction. Yeah. And I've always been revolted by it. I like Johnny Rotten and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
Exactly.
And then
our starting point is, like, not in the big club and kind of throwing stones at the big club. That's where we are.
But you do know, as well as I do, that the big club, they have these weird little chat groups, and they sit there and they come up with these weird little plans to go and do these things, and then if people are in doubt that this club exists, all you need to do is look at Talk TV and GB News and look at the way they just rotate the same people over and over and over again. I mean, we've just watched Dan Wootton tonight's monologue just before we came on air, and he said, "Look, I've got my superstar panel, who aren't superstars, but first of all, but second of all, they're the same faces that you see everywhere else. It's Tonya Buxton and Calvin Robinson and some portly chick."
Yeah. Well, it's a clique, and it's quite an obvious clique. And I actually think it's really sad that it formed so quickly, because when we were in the thick of it, I really appreciated hearing Tonya Buxton those first few times that I did. Yeah, I thought she was really good and a really good representative of it. And I'm not saying that she's a bad person, because I've got no evidence of that. No. But, like, this is a really poisoned punch bowl.
Well, I mean, and they've, like I say, they've got a WhatsApp group. You've got your Tonyas, your Bevs, your Julias. You know who they all are. They're all, your Adams. They're all sitting in a big old group together. And they just rotate and rotate and rotate and rotate, and they only give each other airtime. That is the crucial point, because we have come together and ended up in this network of basically independent people who will talk to bloody anyone. I'll talk to anyone
if it'll get us closer to the truth. You and me have had certainly a very, like, similar output and ethos throughout this.
Oh, and, and me and you, I think, were two of the only ones that went at this, and we were talking about this before we went live. We went at this like it was a bit of fun, right?
Well, oh, absolutely. Well, it was as soon. I mean, when I was so isolated during the lockdown, I just had a divorce and moved back from Wales to just outside of London, which is where I grew up. But I hadn't been here since I was 18, and my intention was to go out to the pub and just find some people my kind of age and see what happens. And then it was lockdown. And I had a whole year where it was like I could find a few people through the internet, but I think it was like 6 months, no, more than that, more than 6 months before I, like, found someone in my local area that I could hang out with. Now one of my best friends, but that was like the first person I clung on to from a sort of Great Reopening local group. It would have been like Great Reopening Bucks, and I would have searched my town name, and I just popped off messages to the few people that said I'm here, and found a best friend through that. But it was I have such a warped sense of time from back then that I couldn't tell you whether that was 6 months, a year, maybe even more. But I think it was shortly before the first protest in the spring, which is where everything changed. And as soon as there was something to do, and I kind of had a vague idea of where I could go and have fun, because by the very end of lockdown, when it was completely farcical and it was like the middle of summer, and they're saying, no, stay indoors, and you and me are pretty much just, like, on Parliament Square, like, most days a week. just hanging out there. It was like my local. It became my pub. That little Tesco Express made it.
Oh my God, they did.
Yeah, didn't they?
And that little what was it? It wasn't a Costa. It was like a Cafe Nero just up the end of the station. I had so much coffee out of them.
No, it's the Tesco. People will know if they've spent a good amount of time like shaking their fist in Westminster, where it's sort of like a shuttle corridor. It's not really a shop.
It's not a shop.
Go in one end and you got to grab what you want on the way, and then there's just a cigarette counter guy and loads of self-service.
Yeah,
and it's just like pelting people through with no human beings actually working in there.
No, it was that bloody Tesco, like you say, and then the pub pretty much directly opposite Downing Street, the Red Lion.
I mean, it's the one opposite Downing Street. I've definitely had a good time outside there. I've had a fantastic time in London, even though it is a hellscape. Like, because I've always been magnetized towards something where it's dudes just doing something. Oh man, I've had such a good time in London the past few years.
But you know what? That's good though. It's good that, not only did we have a laugh, and not only did we, I think, put out an important message, it seems to have helped your mental health, because you said yourself, you were absolutely isolated on your own, had nothing to do, had no one, and from that perspective as well, it does seem like it was good for you.
Yeah, and one thing we were talking about before was like not being very invested in COVID and the sort of the freight train that moves at one going, we must oppose CBDCs, literally everything that happens, whether it's Mizzy
or Kate, turn up outside a drag queen story hour.
Yeah, well, I mean, people do respond to some of the videos that I put out going, it's just a distraction. And my perspective is like, look, I'm just interested in this. I think there's a psyop there. So I'm going to make a 40-minute video about it because I think it's interesting. And I think not a lot of people are doing this subject. So that's just, rather than 2 years ago when it was like, we all need to be on the same page, and there's nothing, I'm not saying that was the right thing to do back then. And I just feel we are in a weird place where people haven't known what's best to do. And I think the whole point is like, well, you get to decide.
Well, this is the entire point that I think me and John especially have been trying to make on the show for 2 years now. It's that it's not up to anybody else what you do. It's not up to anybody else how you conduct yourself, what you want to do, what you believe. It's up to you. There's no heroes. There's no saviors. It's you, and you've got to make those decisions for yourself. And I mean, come on, I was a crippled guy riding around London on a mobility scooter, laughing my arse off, right? Nobody was saving me. I was just riding it out. So were you. I mean, you were wearing a fucking life vest and holding an inflatable fish at times, just walking around. Yeah,
yeah,
you were.
Do that.
You did.
Yeah.
You did.
Just walking around in a life jacket with a fish, because like. Yeah, based on the in-jokes we've been making the past few months, this actually makes sense. There's enough people that understand what this is.
Yeah.
It was a mad Monty Python time. But I like what you say about everyone has to be their own man in this. And the Dan Wootton thing is consensus. There are a few people that you mentioned, like it's the women that can't believe Dan would do something like that. How dare you? He's such a nice man.
Right.
So I haven't seen a lot of men reacting, but the Bevs and the Tonyas have done a bit of that. And I do think they're in for a rude awakening. Because
I will say...
sorry, you go.
That the point that they are making, okay, because you have to look at this from all angles. The point that they are making about the person that they're talking about, not Dan, the other person, is true. Right? The other person seems like an absolute scumbag. Let's face it. Doesn't mean that what's being alleged of Dan isn't true.
Well, because they're smearing the accuser. I mean, from my understanding, the way I've been following it, there's a whole bunch of accusers. So you can't discredit one to discredit what I understand. I I just think the double standard is glorious because it's almost like, I think there's a real chess game going on behind the scenes where they almost used Hugh Edwards as a trap, because those guys did a full week of just hammering, like they were pretending to be so Christian about it. This is filth. Can you believe it?
Well, Dan says he did not say a word on the subject, and I will say this: I didn't. In fact, when we were talking about this, I made one tweet about it and said I don't know the facts when it comes to Hugh Edwards, so I've got no opinion. Basically,
cool. Now my branding, vile news, has sort of morphed into a thing that me and James Goddard are doing together, which is just like, look, we're the far right dudes, and like, you know, if you want your far right news about how like everyone's a nonce and everyone's and all of this stuff, like when it comes to those institutions, I'm not going to presume innocent until proven guilty, because enough times we've seen what they're willing to do to cover stuff up. Now, I'll have to do a full video to justify my position on this, which I'm basically going to watch the Wootton situation unfold over this week and see what I can do with it.
Yeah.
And try and throw together a convincing hour about what we're seeing. But that monologue, there are a few things that I've become used to seeing as patterns. And I wonder if I became hypersensitive to it after a bunch of white nationalists did them to me at the start of 2020. It was interesting because they didn't really spot that the lockdown was a problem.
I find this hilarious, right, ladies and gentlemen. This guy's called far right, right? I'm a lefty, first of all, and I don't think he's far right. Not by the actual definition of it, by the made-up definition of it, maybe, which is the made-up definition of it is, I don't like you, you're far right. That's the made-up definition.
We can crack into these silly definitions because, like, a Nazi is somebody that genuinely believes Hitler was right and it's the Jews. And I've met them. I'm not one of them.
No, I'm not one of them.
Yeah, I mean, free country. I also don't think they're a particular threat in the way that, like, Antifa were. You have nothing to worry about with these silly little Nazi groups. But if we're gonna, you know, crack up, because that was part of my aim as a journalist, was what the hell does far right mean? It's a big umbrella, and underneath it, you've got all this stuff. Right? I don't
think it's got so much of a meaning anymore because it's been so damn diluted.
It's been chucked at David Icke and stuff. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, I've been called it, for God's sake. And I'm wearing a shirt called Little Hippie. And do you know what? I would hug a tree. I would hug a goddamn tree. You know, I've been called it. And simply because, like I say, the made-up definition, I don't like you. I don't like the things you're saying. Therefore, you must be far right. Now, the reason I bring that up is because the actual far right, you know, the idiots, what's his name? What's his name? Runs that fucking organisation.
What, Mark Collett or not?
Oh, yeah.
But I want to differentiate. Me and James Goddard quite enjoy using the label "the real far right" or we're far right, because it means that we're absolutely fed up of this Dover invasion, basically. The stuff that's going on in Dover, the stuff that's going on in the hotels, like every hotel being full of these men. Where are the women and children? That's what I consider far right to be, right? I don't need to trace back to World War II and all of this stuff. I've been in those Telegram groups, to be honest, and they were awful. They were some of the worst I've ever been in.
Yeah, I imagine.
But I didn't even know where I was going with that, but people need to understand personal sovereignty, and they certainly didn't. They had a big hard-on for Hitler and wanted like a big fascist leader.
What? I mean, why?
Yeah, it meant that when the lockdown happened, they were saying, like, David Icke said, "This is fascism."
He did say that, yeah.
No, but like, was he wrong? Like, yeah, you can make some weird argument. No, it's some kind of combination of capitalism and communism and technocracy. Like, who gives a shit?
So I don't know if you've heard of a scientist called Mark Changizi. He lives in Miami now.
No.
We've had him on the show a couple of times. And he's made a point, and it's a point I kind of subscribe to. And it's, yes, absolutely, it was evil. It could have been akin to fascism, right? But the people that did it may well have thought they were doing the right thing. But just because they thought they were doing the right thing does not mean it was not evil.
Well, no, exactly right. And actually, if we do talk about fascism and Nazi and that, do you know who Rafi Farber is?
No.
He's awesome. He covers what's going on with the Fed, and he tells everyone to buy gold and silver because that's how we destroy the Fed. And he's a legend.
Right.
And he's a Jewish guy living in Israel, which obviously was like the worst place to live, to be a massive anti-mask COVID denier.
Yep.
So he's got some real horror stories, but his perspective on it as somebody in Israel, who was in Israel because his family was escaping the Nazis, it's very interesting because he was saying, look, the parallels are exactly the same, right? You're not doing it to Jewish people, you're doing it to the unvaccinated, but it's the same process.
Yeah.
And therefore it was a very apt term to use.
Yeah. And like I said, it doesn't matter if the people that were implementing these things thought they were doing the right thing or thought they were doing it for what they thought was the greater good. You do evil, you do evil, and it's still evil. It doesn't matter.
Well, this is why I think it's very important to not get tunnel vision when it comes to COVID and say that everything else is a distraction, because the fact that the media is run by such perverts is an integral part of how this happened in the first place. Right. I was thinking about this before we got on, that I want to really justify gossip. I think gossip probably serves an incredible evolutionary purpose, because what I'm doing at the moment is a gossip channel by doing, here's the news about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp and Dan Wootton is.
We'll talk about Pearl a bit later as well. Jesus Christ, that's a train wreck, isn't it?
This is not on the level of Mike Yeadon and stuff. This is not super serious, but I think what's coming through is, I knew this as soon as I started a channel, that if I'm kind of misaligned, inauthentic, if I'm kind of lying to myself and therefore lying to my audience, pretending to be something I'm not just ignoring something in my life, I know that will manifest in my output. And eventually either my audience will see it or I'll end up in some situation that's a result of this thing I haven't worked on, because it's a very interesting thing doing this experiment where you do this all publicly through a video and you end up in a weird feedback loop, right? Yeah. And you get sucked into a movement and all the rest of it.
Unfortunately.
No. That's why we need the sovereignty. That's why anarchism and individual liberty is the way forward. And that's why I want to wreck the big club. Can we have a look at the Byline Times article?
Yeah, me and you we can take a read through it. Absolutely. I'm not in a position to put it on screen at the minute, but we can have a read through it. Can I put it on screen? No, I'm not even going to try, because I've got 16 frames set up to hotkeys, and I'll start going through them, and you'll get the side of my face, and then we'll get up your nostril, and
that's all good.
So let's have a look through it anyway. So for those that don't know, the Byline Times last night released an article about Dan Wootton. Okay, they're making a series of allegations, and we must stress they are allegations at this time, right? I know, I can see the eye roll. Don't worry.
I put my eyes down on purpose. That's what I did.
But they're making these allegations, and they're worth covering. So let's begin, I guess. GB News star Dan Wootton unmasked in cash for sexual images catfishing scandal. And by the way, the next line is very telling to me, because I think they've probably got more, because it says, in the first part of its 3-year special investigation, Byline Times reveals the accounts of victims targeted by the powerful TV presenter. Well, alleged victims. I've got some problems with the Byline Times as an organisation, and we'll get to that, I guess, a bit later. But yeah, GB News presenter and Mail Online columnist Dan Wootton hid behind fake online identities to trick and bribe scores of men into revealing compromising sexual material. Byline Times can reveal in the first part of a 3-year special investigation. Now, that part, they've been doing this for 3 years, or they're going to be milking things out for the next 3 years?
They've been working on it for 3 years.
That's interesting.
And what I think you can glean from the article that what happened was there were a few like whistleblowers on Twitter. So there's this guy, Kev Sutherland is one of them. And I guess the other one is Alex, the ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
There might be more. Those are the two that I remember. But they came out before this article. You obviously you can presume that everyone is talking to each other. The journalists that wrote this and those guys that have been tweeting, they've been talking for a while. I don't know if it was agreed that those guys could tweet and they were like safe to. I don't know how much of this is coordinated, but essentially they're having their like all for one moment where I don't think the Byline Times necessarily planned on doing this now, but now that it's happened, they are, and they're basically ready. They feel ready. So what can we say about Byline Times, first of all, is like politically we don't agree with them.
Well,
just get that out of the way.
Well, it's not even that, right? Because I don't even look at really the politics of an organization. I look at, I obviously I do when it comes to the way they slant their stories, but they've got some very interesting ties with security services, and their names keep popping up on subject access requests and freedom of information requests, and it just seems like a bit of a spook organization, shall we say?
Yeah, it's got the same way that Navarro Media like says that it's a grassroots left-wing organization.
Is
and
it
they just
fuck?
Well, exactly. It's got the same. It smells exactly like Navarro to me. But here's the thing: is we're being pitted in a left-right battle with your representatives, Labour and Tory. And I hate Labour and Tory. I hate both of them, and I never want to forget that. I never want to get tricked again, because it happened before, into like hating Labour so much that, oh God, I've got to vote Tory, or vice versa. And so I have zero problem with an organization like Navarra or Byline like genuinely exposing some dodgy stuff in conservative ink, which is what I'd call GB News. It's part of this like machinery that basically gets you to vote Tory. And so if anyone is chipping away at that and they're exposing genuine corruption, that's awesome. Like, I haven't looked into the Carol Vorderman thing yet, but she's being smeared as a lol cow to such a degree by GB News that I'm wondering whether they don't want people to look into what she's saying, because she's kind of had this ridiculous bottom surgery from the looks of it. I'm not. This is the thing. We have to look at the argument, not the person.
I know.
Right?
I know.
And I don't believe that Carol. If anyone's going to do the sums on government misspending, who would be better than the woman from Countdown that did the sums for decades? Like, I think she's genuinely in lockdown, sat down, cracked the numbers, and gone, "What the? No, I'm not saying." And she might not even understand anything about PCR tests or like masks don't work. She's just looked. It looks like she's just looked at like the Nightingale spending and stuff like that, and gone, "What in the fresh hell is this?" And now they're trying to destroy her character. And I wonder if anyone's being made a laughing stock.
Yeah.
Let's look at where it's coming from and why.
Well, yeah, no, you've got a point there, and she is definitely a numbers woman. I used to turn around to my wife. Well, when we were in our, we've been married for 10 years, been together quite a bit longer than that. But I used to turn around to her. We'd have Countdown on, and I'd go, "Gonna marry Carol? Gonna marry her?" And she'd go, "Why? She's old." And I'd go, "Yeah, but her brain is fantastic." You know, I'd always do that. She's a smart woman. She might be, and she is a bit of a lolcow, right? She is a bit of a lolcow, but she's a smart woman. She's a very smart woman.
Yeah, my point is, like, I am now so suspicious of GB News, and it came off the back of me deciding to do the Prince Harry deep dive, which was like, everyone says, why would I care about Harry and Meghan? And that's essentially what Harry and Meghan want you to do. They want you to leave them alone and not really care about them. If you want to listen to their podcast or read the book, you can. It's like an opt-in system. And they're telling everyone to like opt out, stop being voyeuristic. That's what I've taken away from it. So like, I don't know. I haven't read his book or ever listened to her podcast, but I kind of defend them without like ever having bothered listening to an interview with her. I barely know what she sounds like. I just know that this campaign is not natural because it's coming from Piers Morgan, right? That guy is so poised at the center of what is bad, right?
Yeah.
We can't flush him. He's a turd that we can't flush. And he's like been involved in some genuinely awful stuff, like the News of the World stuff. And you can't get rid of him. And it's clear to me that they've been tasked with hating Harry and Meghan because it's not a reasonable vendetta for these like random men in the media to have when Harry and Meghan have not engaged with them at all. So they're being told to, and I think they're being told to by William.
I mean, I can certainly see your point. I mean, I have absolutely no love for Harry and Meghan, none. But then again,
you don't need it.
I have absolutely no love for any of those unelected spongers, to be honest.
But how about the one that left the family and all royal duties and went, yeah, I don't want to sponge anymore. I'll make my own way, do a podcast or whatever.
No, yeah, I certainly understand where you're coming from. But then at the same time, you know, I don't get their argument of the fact that they want privacy and then they'll go out and do everything they can to give themselves the opposite.
Well, so my argument is you don't care.
No.
And that's fine. That's appropriate. Dan Wootton and Piers Morgan care to a suspicious degree, and their holidays seem to depend on it. Right?
Right.
These men, I've been thinking a lot about the word prostitute and what it could mean in a broader sense applied to like media prostitute, because it means somebody who will get up and get angry about whatever they've been paid to be angry about. And that's what I'm starting to see in a lot of GB News, because when it comes to lockdown type stuff that we have a consensus on, they do give us what we want sometimes, and it's possible to. Like,
I'm gonna push back against that. They've never given me what I want.
I'm being very kind to them.
No.
I'm being very forgiving. Very, very compared to the BBC is basically what I'm saying. But it's those other stories. That's what I'm now interested in, because every single one of them, yeah, they're all distractions, but they've all got agendas. There's all a reason for them. And I think every single one of them is a bit upside down. So like, you notice Dan Wootton mentioned it in his intro. He had like 3 segments on Harry and Meghan. Well, that is a distraction. That's a distraction from Dan Wootton.
Yeah.
That's a way of going, right, well, let's just wheel out the same royal experts to say, I think Harry and Meghan are on the rocks. And, you know, when she leaves him, which I predict will be in 12 months, which has been their coverage the whole time it's been a station. They've been predicting their breakup. Never happens. I'm just pointing out that, like, they're being fed something, and they're also being fed anything to keep people like us hooked. Like Neil Oliver's monologue is so interesting with Neil Oliver, because I kind of can't think of him as a bad guy.
No, I don't think of him as a bad guy at all.
No, but have you ever seen the film Network?
Yes.
Do you know what it is? Yeah.
Yes, and eventually he just loses his shit, right?
He loses his shit very early on.
Yeah.
Basically, he goes mad and wants to kill himself quite early, and he says this on TV as a news anchor, and then it becomes really popular. And there's this woman who like kind of knows how to use this for ratings and knows exactly how to play him to get it more popular. And then the ratings die off, and they murder him. And he was planning on committing suicide anyway, so you know, no big loss. And that's the movie, and it's absolutely brilliant, and everyone should make sure they watch Network.
I agree.
At some point.
I've not seen it for a long time, but
it's so good with where we are.
But I'm
now.
mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Exactly. It's just like everyone knows that speech, and I feel like it's kind of come full circle. There's so few movies that I actually like now that I could sit down and watch.
I mean, we're starting to on our side channel. We talk about the state of cinema and the state of pop culture, and we do travel and things like that. And the fucking state of pop culture and the state of cinema, it's in the pits. Absolutely in the pits.
Yeah, and that's because I think that maybe in the 90s, genuinely creative people were allowed into the industry, I guess, because it seems to have been a really fun time when, like, kind of anything goes. There were loads of interesting musical trends. Like, there were really weird bands were like from all sorts of different genres throughout the 90s. Lots of really cool stuff happened. And by this point, oh my God, everything sounds the same, doesn't it?
I can't listen to the radio anymore.
Well, so did I send you my Kesha piece? Because this was an interesting one for this. I'm charting pop culture through whatever these abuse cases are, and it is very interesting.
Yeah,
because there's a few guys that like have a complete stranglehold on the Miley Cyrus style singles that get pumped into everyone's brain. But it's kind of unraveling now because like Britney and Paris Hilton and all that lot are a certain age, and everyone can see what's happened.
Yeah. Well, you're right. So, first of all,
yeah,
you're right, and second of all, have you ever heard of an Australian comedy troupe called the Axis of Awesome?
Yeah, of course I have.
Right, they do a skit called The Four Chords.
Yeah,
and that is the explanation right now of the entire music industry. It's just the same shit repackaged, the same four chords, perhaps in a different order, slammed down your throat, and you're just told to consume, enjoy. I mean, Adam in the chat says, just leave us with our Netflix and our McDonald's, right? And I also want to say hello to Abby Roberts, who I've just seen go into the chat.
There's a whole load of people who were also silent. They were silent about Dan Wootton, but they're also silent about Abby. There's just a weird crossover there between those people. I've noticed. I don't know. I feel I want to share this with the people that I know are in those circles and are appalled by the same things as we are.
Yeah.
That are watching right now, which is like, how good does it feel to have no dirty scumbags in your phone book and not be in any of those WhatsApp groups where people are going, don't believe it, it's just a jealous ass.
I know exactly who you're talking about as well. I do.
I've never been in them. I've been in some WhatsApp or some groups that like had that vibe or whatever, but not the ones in this movement. But it's just strange because I feel like you can really read authenticity through Twitter. I think that you can actually you can get people's energy really quickly from.
Can you see how fed up I am?
Yeah. I wonder about this with I call them the Melville mob. That like it was established that these guys would have thousands of likes on their tweets like so early.
Yeah.
You know, and so inorganically. If you've got a comma after that heart on one of your tweets, that's not real traffic. That's bot traffic.
Well,
right?
I couldn't tell. Well, the thing is that the thing with people like Melville, right? And sorry, James, this is absolutely true because everyone can see your Twitter account. The reason he got so many followers was because he just sat there clicking follow. That's why he got so many followers. I mean, if you look, hold on, I'll actually look at this because I can't put it on screen, but I can give you accurate figures. Please don't have already blocked me because I've mentioned your name. See, he's been cutting them down, but he follows nearly 100,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, so he follows is 98.7k people, and it's the same with the pub guy. Won't name him, but the pub guy follows hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah. Well, these are PR guys, aren't they? They're guys that are from this industry, and I think the point is like this really shone through in Loza on Dellingpole, right? Which I was looking at before we got on tonight. That's sort of my next video project is kind of tearing that one apart a bit.
Because, I tried to watch it, I couldn't.
I think, well, this is the point is like, I don't want to believe that James Dellingpole is in the big club, but I have to bully James Dellingpole to make him realize that he's spending too much time in the big club.
But you know what?
Right, I kind of have to at the moment, because that was not adequate questioning. There was something odd going on there, where he's done some incredibly intense and important interviews.
Yeah.
With sort of Yeadon at the peak of it, and so, like, really, really early on, good stuff, and going really, really deep.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole point of the Miri AF open letter to Andrew Bridgen is that it does go really deep. It asks a load of questions that are unignorable now. They're in the room. You can't ignore it. It's a big elephant over there. And what I didn't like was, it's like, okay, we're listening to James and Lawrence chums, like buddies, not an interview about something serious like we would have been with Mike Yeadon. And quite frankly, given the ping pong of interviewing Miri and now getting Loza on, we've all come with this expectation that it's going to be addressed. It was like 40 minutes before they got round to it, and just like, a lot of people died. A lot of people died. A lot of people still dying. And not a game. I know we try and have fun with it, but like, my lads be really pissed off.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, of course you are, right? Do you know what? I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off because at the end of the day, we're going to go back there. People like Bridgen, especially, right, they piss me right off because they supported the things that led to things like one of my followers here, Trudy. She's in the chat. Bless her. Her son took his own life because of lockdown. Andrew Bridgen supported that. He supported that action.
Yeah.
And then he can turn around and now try and hold himself up as some kind of bastion of freedom.
Well, I think this will happen sometimes, basically, as we do have a shared cause. And now we're basically, like, my life's pretty cool. I'm kind of designing my life so that it looks like a life I want to live, and it's all good, which I didn't have the freedom to do when we were all in lockdown. But basically, the government isn't like a huge threat to me right now in my daily life. Do you know what I mean? So I'm trying to, like, don't live your life consumed by, oh, we must be in the fight, because that's what they want you to do. But throughout this whole thing, different groups will form, and we know, because it's those names. It's like Sean's here, and Trudy's here, and Abby's here.
Yeah.
And like
Charlotte's here.
You're the guys that like have a nose for this, right? So as soon as Together Declaration formed, it was like, I mean, on paper, I can't criticize. Yeah, let's get a huge list of names of people who are against vaccine passports, but like something's off here, because I just kind of, I don't jive with it.
But weren't they offering a lifetime membership for $2 fucking grand?
What?
Somebody
to what?
Somebody
what were you to the petition?
To the Together Declaration.
Yeah, which is a petition.
Well, it's an organisation.
Doing it for life for $2 grand? No, I'm not doing that.
No, I swear to God, right? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but when they launched their movement, they were offering, I think it was $1 grand, but formerly $2 grand, but this one chance offer for 50% off for a lifetime membership.
Oh, wow. No, what a great... No, but you can tell by who's, like, on the stage straight away. Toby Young is in Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book. There is a tweet where Rod Liddell says, Toby, are you saying in this article that if it weren't for your wife, you would succumb to your paedophilic urges? And he responds by saying yes.
I've seen that.
It's really quite something. This is quite... can we start believing people when they tell us who they are? Right? Because I know with Dan Wootton, he hasn't told us who he is. But like, I've been bashing my head against the wall with Andrew Tate going, I mean, it's right there. Here's these videos of him saying, yes, I'm guilty of all the crimes they accuse me of.
I mean, let's talk about Tate for a second, right? Because I will say this. There are literally videos of Andrew Tate sitting on camera saying, this is how I get them to fall in love with me so they can come and work in my webcam studio. Those videos exist. I have watched them.
Yeah, and the thing that I really don't find at all funny at this stage is that this was actually a red pill awakening for so many of us before COVID, which was Like they're calling Tommy Robinson a bad man. What is Tommy Robinson saying is happening? He says that there are these Pakistani grooming gangs all up and down the country. Is that true? Oh, wait, turns out it is. Right,
Yeah, but
that was really, really horrible. And it's the same method that Andrew Tate is using. Tommy Robinson thinks that Andrew Tate is top G, as do all the people that defended Tommy Robinson. And it's the most bizarre thing that I think I've ever seen. It's so strange.
Do you know what? I think holding Tommy Robinson, or anybody by that matter, up as a hero is bizarre. I don't think you should have a hero. I don't think you should have somebody that you want to lead you or to tell you that that you need to do this and you need to do that in order, right? Let them go and do what they want to do, but you've got to do things for yourself. I just want to stop you for a second because I've just had a fact check from John. It says you are right about the one-off payment. I think they dropped it to $750.
$750 for lifetime membership of a petition.
Yep.
Wow. I suppose they have had events. Which...
I mean, I think Charlotte said tote bags.
No, I just I know we all find him annoying. I never listen to him. I've not listened to a single London Calling, but I hear it referenced all the time. I just know that it's beyond him just being irritating. He's the head of the Free Speech Union. He has a responsibility. It's like I don't like these people who've given themselves the title, right?
I was going to say this.
Yeah, this is the thing when it comes to free speech. It's like, if you have gone out there and said free speech is under attack, I expect you to actually be doing better than I'm doing. They're like, this isn't the main thing. I actually really like music. I would love the freedom to just be doing music.
We're going to make some music this summer, me and you.
We are. I've written my first song, and it's the anti-fascist punks are going to find it sacrilegious.
People are going to hate the song that I'm writing at the moment. It's called Nobody Fought Harder.
Nice. Oh my God, that's brilliant. Would you like to join Bully Bragg and the Bastards?
Perhaps. We shall see.
My punk band I'd like to form, because Billy Bragg has become the most hardcore woman-hating, anti-turf, pro-trans creature. Did someone say it was the Hope Not Hate gig tonight that I think is sold out and Billy Bragg is headlining? But this man is pro-woman punching at this point. So I want to form a band that is essentially that, just like an oi punk band that's we like punching women because we're women too. I
just want to address Charlotte in the chat there, because she has actually just typed out the first line to the song that I'm writing. Yep.
It's so good. It's so yes. To swing it back round to Dan, right? Okay, I know allegedly and all that. We're not making any call on guilty. What I'm for is I'm rooting for it to be true, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And that started coming with the Hugh Edwards stuff. They were like, be careful what you say because libel. And it's like, look, I know that the BBC has an issue with protecting paedophiles because of that statue and that Top of the Pops guy and that Australian arts dude and Jill Dando dying and all of this. I've spotted the pattern. So I'm going to root for it being true. And I think that that's my right under free speech, right?
Of course it is.
I want it to be true that it's not that I want it to be true that everyone is a filthy pervert. It's that when it appears to be coming out that somebody is a filthy pervert, I want to be like, yes, this is it. This is the one, because we can talk about Sound of Freedom now, and there's a lot that's worth talking about there. That some people are so obsessed with the black and white idea that this film is going to sort of destroy Hollywood, or that this film is some kind of psyop to corral us QAnon.
I don't think it's either.
It's not. It's a movie.
It's a movie
made by some people that care deeply about child trafficking, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right. But I do believe that the reason that people attach to it so readily is that, and that they miss the Andrew Tate situation, is they like a perfect victim, right? And that means a child, right? An innocent child that can't possibly have done anything wrong is the issue we want to fix, right? We love adrenochrome as the, you know, catch the baddies in the cabal doing the adrenochrome.
You see me rolling my eyes there.
Where there's like so much evidence that what he's basically done is groomed teenagers from poverty, like Eastern Europe, you know, really people that probably grew up without families as well. And what I see in so many of these cases, like Meghan Markle's another one, Amber Heard, all the rest of it, is the victim blaming. And back in the Me Too wave, I didn't think that word meant anything. But now I'm starting to see, right, let's just assume that this person like is a piece of shit. They're not a criminal, but they're like nasty, right? Not a nice person.
Yeah.
Imagine someone at school that you just wouldn't hang out with. Let's just presume that like Meghan Markle is that. Yeah. Or Amber Heard is that, or whoever we're talking about is that. Do they deserve this treatment? Like, did Lily Allen was a good one because Dan Wootton was really going at Lily Allen when she was really suffering with addictions. And like, do I find Lily Allen annoying? Like, yeah, I do. Do I side with her against Dan Wootton? Yeah, I do. So
fair
this
enough.
Is kind of how I see it.
No, yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from, and it is an interesting angle, and one I'm going to be completely honest with you, is not one that I usually would come from, because I just take people at face value. I don't really sit back and think what could or is going on behind the scenes. Now, I want to address something. I didn't think I would. Good. Yeah.
The chat's well lively. I love your subscribers only. There's no dickheads allowed. It's lovely.
Yeah, only the subscribers are allowed to talk.
Yeah, no, it's good. Good rule. Like, this is the thing with free speech. A lot of people will show up and go, oh, you say you're for free speech and then you block me. Like, yeah, it's like it's like knocking on my door and just saying, hey, arsehole, let me in. No,
yeah, we had a little issue there, technically. We're back. We apologise. Everything seems to be running good now. Everything's looking good my end. So it's all good. I do apologise. I mean, I've completely lost my train of thought. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, well, I don't know what your jumping off point was before that happened.
No.
I know I keep going off in all directions, but
that's the great thing about this show, right? I never come in here and have people on with a direct agenda. We don't have, a set path we're going to go down. I just like to have conversations with interesting people. I mean, it could be you today. It could be Ash Sarkar tomorrow. You know, I don't care who's sitting in the other chair. I just want to talk to people.
I find her terrific fun because she is wrong about loads.
Well, most things, again, yes.
Yeah, it's most things. But she's really good at winding up that specific group of people that I talked about earlier that really annoy me, which is a hardcore white nationalist.
The Colette types.
Like, she engages with them on Twitter, debunks their arguments, makes them look like dickheads.
Yeah.
I kind of like her for it. I like that bit about her. A little bit. Just a little bit.
I just can't stand her
and
in
it's
general.
like Dr. Scholler. Dr. Scholler.
Oh my God, she's one of the biggest racists on this planet.
I know, but there's something I absolutely love about the fact that we have, I mean, you could look at it as we have fallen so far that like Roger Scruton was cancelled while bloody Dr. Scholler is like on Good Morning Britain telling everyone that they're a racist. But there's something about her Twitter when she goes after the royal family and specifically King Charles, because there is this fawning over the royals in the GB News wing, right?
Yes.
That was a big splitting point.
Do you remember that damn Wootton video of him laying the flowers?
Very, very odd, all of this. Yeah. But that's the same kind of performance I'm talking about. His hatred for Meghan Markle is like, oh, I shed tears when the Queen died. Why? She's not your granny. Like, she's not your granny. And also she presided over the biggest loss of empire in world history. I don't know, whichever way you want to spin it. I'm not sure that colonialization and all that is good. You know, the left probably do have some points on that one.
Yeah.
Probably not good to just go around the world going, yeah, that's ours. But like, But the Queen didn't do her job. She did commit treason when signing the Lisbon Treaty and stuff like that. There's loads of times she didn't do her job, and she presided over the collapse of the institutions that the Queen only exists to protect.
Okay.
So it's a bit rubbish, really. So but my point is, yeah, like they all in unison at GB News had the Queen coverage, the Queen is dead coverage, and the coronation coverage. And it was a huge splitting point. I'm sure no one in this chat is like pro Queenie and all of that. Maybe.
But do you know what? Even if they are, right? Like, for example, my grandmother, she's 78, right? She's the loveliest human being on the planet. She wouldn't hurt a fly, but she's fucking massive royalist. And I always call her, Nan, you're silly. Right, you're silly, but she loves it. She loves all the pomp and ceremony and all the institutions and all of that. And you know, if that's what you like, you know, you're a free agent. You've got agency, and you know it goes right back to the core of what I think this conversation is kind of about, which is the fact that you should be able to make your own decisions and like what you like and be who you are. We don't have to like it.
Well, I suppose when the Queen died, there were only a couple of like factions that were allowed to express the fact that they didn't care or they didn't like the royals. You were expected to be upset. That sort of the average person was being primed to be like, yeah, you've got to mourn now. And there's like, you know, a wing of grubby lefty communists that'll always throw eggs and be against this. And like, again, like, I don't know, they might hate my far right side, but I'm just softening from that whole fight. I'm just not interested anymore. It took too many chunks out of me. I think I miss those dreadlocked fellas. There were a lot of them on our marches, you know?
Yeah, there were. There bloody well were. Yeah. But you know what? That was the other thing I loved about that situation. It was the fact that there were so many people from so many different political spheres, so many different religions, races. I mean, the fucking Hare Krishnas turned up every other week. And just started giving everybody free food, didn't they? They were just like, free vegetarian food over here. I mean, I'm not a vegetarian in any way, shape or form, so I never had any of their food. But, you know, it was nice to see people that would normally just flat out disagree on most things come together and just enjoy themselves. But then at the same time, I think that was a problem. Now, it was a party every time. It was a fucking party. And let's face it, and this is my opinion, government let that happen because they were going, you know what, they're getting out of their system, they're blowing off some steam, and they'll fuck back off. So...
yeah, but what other options were there? Because I think there were people...
there were options, I just can't say them on this platform.
No anarchist cookbook. I know someone who's in jail. I previously interviewed who's now in jail for Fed posting. I mean, I don't support the guy. He did do it. I'm not saying this fella's innocent, but I'm just saying, I actually watched it happen to someone. It's like, this is serious stuff. No, it's a fun life being an internet journalist. It's great if you interview everyone. So you're going to turn some stuff over.
And Abby, if you're still watching, you owe me one of these. You need to be in the hot seat at some point soon. Just saying.
That's good fun.
Yeah, it would be good fun. Would be
good
fun.
No, it is good fun. And I think that, the problem with... I don't want there to be any remnants of that old system. You know, GB News was always dangerous because it was lulling people back in, and it really was. It's why I mentioned Neil Oliver, is because, like, I'm sure he's a good dude, but there is something wrong about the network setup. Like, I'm not sure if the monologues help. I think that they did at the beginning.
I think they help a lot of people.
Does it have diminishing returns?
I believe it does, yes.
Yeah. Is it potentially a bit pacifying? I don't know. Because what we are demonstrating right now through this Wootton thing is that, like, I will say it, I do not believe that Byline Times would go ahead and do this without the sufficient receipts. And I believe that his response did not focus on convincing holes, as far as I'm concerned. It was a Darvo technique.
Going back to the point I made about Carol Vorderman, Peter Jukes is not stupid, right? the Byline Times are not stupid, and they're not going to make.
Well, I don't think they're going to frame him.
Well, no, they're not gonna make such salacious claims unless they've got something in the tank, and they are saying this is the first part, which means they're saying they've got more.
Yeah, what's quite interesting is that I know that from people that haven't watched the pieces that I've made, I got this accusation today from someone that like, well, I know that you like doing this for clicks because it gets people all like riled up, and it's like, I don't like that you would think low enough of me that I would put something out without being bloody sure. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing with Tate, is because I've seen for a long time, like, this is a trap.
Well,
this
me and
is clearly a trap. They want you supporting him for some reason. I don't need to know what it is. I don't need to explain the why. It's just like, this is a bad dude. Don't go anywhere near that.
Yeah, I mean, me and you have had these existential questions about your place in the world, or existential conversations about your place in the world in person, in more than one occasion. And you know, one thing that I like to strive towards, and I think John does as well, and I hope a lot of people can agree with, is that the old school method of journalistic ethics, where you check your sources, you get a second source, you get a third source, and you make sure you're damn sure before you report something as a fact, is something you should live by, you should strive by if you're going to do something journalistic. Now, when it comes to Tate, I believe that you can say these things because he's fucking framed himself hook, line, and sinker.
Exactly. The argument that he's like not a sex trafficker is quite weird, because it's like he's sure as hell left a lot of evidence to suggest that he is, including an entire online course teaching you how to do it yourself.
Yeah, teaching you how to
use
the lover boy method.
Yeah, like, have I sent you Mr. Whip It Out?
I think you have.
I've got a feeling I have, but basically, like, if you know how to, you can spot these little proteges.
You did that, fucking idiot. He's like, just whip it out, man. Just get it out. Just get it out.
Yeah. So he's one of these lads that's bought the Pimpin' Hose degree, and now his life is trying to sign.
And he is right. And saying this as two devilishly attractive men, Mr. Whip It Out is one ugly fucker.
He's a bit Shrekky, isn't he? He's got something of the orc about him. I actually said that to a mate. I was like, mate, when Tolkien was writing Lord of the Rings, like, that's an orc. That guy right there is an orc. I'm sorry, it just is. But yeah. The Tate thing went so much higher than I was expecting. I did not expect it to go all the way to Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk and like involve people of that height when I started looking into it. But clearly it matters. It matters to be on the right side of it. And like I do look at Bev or Tonya or Leilani going, it's just a jealous ex. I'm like, have you read this article?
Didn't a bunch of them just go on the old Mark Stein cruise as well? It's
Look, I'm going to say it now. Mark Stein has done some excellent work, but his guest policy is a bit obvious. I know you like to be surrounded by honeys, Mark.
Pretty women.
There are more important things. And there was a time when you were the guy who was bringing Vicky Spit and Charlotte Wright and everyone on. And now it's just Eva and Leilani and Dominique every week. And I know what this is about, bro.
And I'm just going to bring them on my cruise with me as well.
I didn't know they went on a cruise.
That's last week, the Mark Stein cruise. Did you not see it? Yeah, you had to pay like well over $1,000 if you wanted to go on it. The Mark Stein cruise, baby. He does it. He's been doing it for the last few years. Okay,
fair enough. But I mean, this guy has been handing over to Dan Wootton until he was kicked off. Like, I did share something. I shared a photo of Julia, Renee, Bev, and Laura Dodsworth at Dan Wootton's 40th, being like, do you think none of them heard the rumors? None of them?
Well,
no one at that party?
I can't definitively sit here and say that Dan Wootton is guilty of the things that he's been accused of, right? I can't, because I've not seen any evidence. That's just...
There's a lot.
I imagine there is a lot... I imagine the Byline Times, if they've been doing this for 3 years and they're confident with their reporting, they've got something. That's just my feeling. They've probably got something. But we listened. So before we came on air, I said this earlier. We watched Dan Wootton's opening monologue, and he did address this directly. Credit where credit's due. He didn't ignore it or sidestep it. He did go for it head on. Okay, but some of the things he said it was like reading between the lines. Now, I'm not going to read between those lines publicly. I'll leave those lines for you to read between. But he was saying things such as, I definitely made some mistakes and I've learned from them and grown. Well, what do you mean by that, Mr. Branning? Nope.
Well, yeah, Martin Branning wasn't really addressed. It was stuff to do with jealous exes and stuff. Yeah. Martin Branning still, and Maria Johnson, I think, is another one.
So I'm wondering if I'm pondering if at least those parts of the story could be there could be some veracity there, shall we say? I think quite. Sorry, I just seen a comment from Abby that just says something's grown.
It's just what I know about cases like this, and this is having the guys who are arguing the Tate case on Twitter. I could point you at a couple of these accounts. Like Murdered by Crayons is the best one that's still there. There was one called Crab Crawler that got banned, and that is very, very interesting.
Right.
One of the main accounts that was exposing Tate and putting all the documents that proved everything.
Tate is now getting paid for his ad share by Twitter.
Exactly.
He's one of the very few that is getting that.
Yeah, it's very disturbing the way it's being used, generate all this media attention to generate money based on what he's done to human beings. I really don't like it. I forget where I was going. I've lost it.
But then again, when it comes to Tate, I would like to dive deeper because, I think when you look at what they're saying the charges are, they may get away with that or get off, right? If that is...
What I was going to say, and this relates to the Byline Times tonight, is that, when you watch these guys, they have been gathering their information for a very long time, so they kind of know every argument you've got for it. They know what all the tater tots are going to say, and they've got the perfect document to just go, nope, that debunks that.
Yeah.
So people say, look, there's no proof that they kidnapped these girls. Well, that's because they're not being charged with kidnapping. They're being charged with coercion. And there's these classic arguments that are thrown out there. So I do believe that Dan was setting a few up there, question the guy's mental health. I was an abuse victim. DARVO stands for, deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. And it's well worth looking up if people aren't familiar with that term, because it's a repeating pattern. You'll see it a lot. It was used against anti-vaxxers.
Of course.
It's just so much relies on this principle. I think sharing the blame to say they're just trying to bring GB News down. No, because the BBC doesn't get brought down by Hugh Edwards getting removed as newscaster.
No,
that doesn't mean that BBC News doesn't continue.
I mean,
why is Dan Wootton so integral to the survival of GB News?
Well,
you couldn't replace him. They just did with Mark Dolan for a week.
I was going to say, and even though I didn't watch that either, I imagine Mark Dolan was probably actually much more entertaining and engaging than Dan Wootton, because I used to watch Balls of Steel. I quite enjoyed it.
I know. I put some of that on while we were driving back from work a couple of days ago, some old Balls of Steel, just because I was reminded of it. And man, how much do you miss that? I think the last leg was really pivotal in the destruction of Friday night comedy.
I agree.
It was. I don't remember if there was one that came before. No, there was. There was the Friday Night Project, which sort of went political. But the last leg was pretty much just clap the NHS for 45 bloody minutes and scream about the Tories.
Oh,
whereas
God,
Balls of Steel was just guys running around throwing burgers at the public and stuff. It was wonderful, Do
you know what? Well, that guy, Nedge, who used to do that, actually now a friend of mine because of all of this, right?
He's all right, isn't he? Nedge is all right.
He's a bloody good guy. And you know what? He's not getting, he's not getting primetime Friday night TV at the moment, is he? And I'm not saying that as a slight against him. I'm saying that it was just mindless, fun entertainment, and we can't be having that anymore.
Yeah, do you know who's a really interesting character for this? Was Dapper Laughs.
Yep.
Because I think he got banned from Twitter, like, you know, absolutely ages ago. So no one even remembered it. And then when the Twitter reinstatement came in, Dapper Laughs is back because after like 8 years.
Yeah.
And I think he really was one of the first people. I was not like a fan at the time, but actually probably looking back, it's like, yeah, well, this guy's just lad banter, isn't it? This is fine. And I think he's one of these, like Nohun. Do you know who Nohun is?
No.
Oh, Nohun's amazing. He's on Instagram. He's this like camp, like slightly fat guy from the Midlands who he just rips apart the COVID stuff and all the Philip Schofield stuff. And there's a thing, if you were never allowed in the big club, you can revel in how dirty these people are, and you like should, and we should all laugh about it because they didn't want to let us in the club.
Of course they didn't. Like I said earlier, right? There are people who are very much in that club who, in person, will walk up to me and want to talk to me and want to say things to me and even want to have pictures with me. And then when you ask them for a bit of help because your Twitter account gets taken down, where are they?
Abby has unfortunately corrected me, and Dapper Laughs is on Headliners on GB News, which I've never watched. And which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because like I really should be target audience because I'm so thirsty for like some comedy that leans my way, but I can smell your authenticity, Doyle. I'm not watching this. I don't like
I don't like Andrew Doyle at all. It's just something about him. There is just something about him. It just doesn't seem authentic.
When push comes to shove. That's the issue with Andrew Doyle, is he would never fight when push comes to shove. He'd never actually take up arms with you when it counts, because he didn't. But he didn't. He'll talk about it now.
Yeah, but
he'll sit back and wait.
If you remember, right, and I'm going to make another criticism of the people, the big club, they would turn up to these protests, walk along on the back for a bit, make sure they got some photographs and some video of themselves there, and then fuck off to the wine bar. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong. I just didn't know how much of this was set up from before, how much of it is a naturally occurring process, how much these people that are just interested in this kind of lifestyle gravitate towards each other. I think Abby's a really interesting character because she was kind of welcome in it for a bit, I guess, because they were probably purely on the basis of being a comedian.
But then at the same time,
industry.
I've met Abby. I've rolled alongside her on my mobility scooter while she's been walking through in these protests, and she hasn't been making sure that she's being seen with, a somebody. She's just walking through and holding up her sign or shouting her slogans and enjoying the atmosphere and the day and being there from start to finish. But these people weren't doing that.
No, and I never thought that they were. And my gang was always whoever's like there on the street. Is why I mentioned Sue and Steve, Rebels on Rant. I suppose they came down to London all the time, so I can't. But this is me saying that there's like other places and people that I'm like not aware of, but you kind of know from your neck of the woods, and
Dan Seth.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to look on the Dan Wootton thing. I want to highlight Calvin Robinson very quickly, which is that because it's my same complaint about James Dellingpole claiming to really be a hardcore Christian and that we're in a spiritual war, good and bad, God and the devil. And it's like, mate, you're not allowed to find Andrew Tate funny. If that's the case, you're not allowed to be like, yeah, but he really sticks it to the feminazis. Like, yeah, look, there's a contradiction going on here. You act like it matters. And in the case of Calvin Robinson, it's much worse, because if that stuff about Dan is true, which I think it looks pretty damn likely that he's not clean, I just don't think that. I think that the right thing to do would be to not appear alongside that guy and defend him and implicitly defend him while this is going on, if you're a vicar, I would suggest that's not appropriate, because I think there's enough evidence to suggest that you should think cautiously about this and not just go nicely because he's your mate.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying.
I've got higher standards for vicars. I'll tell you that. I really do.
Well, I am in no way, shape, or form religious. I'm
None at all.
No, I'm an agnostic.
Yeah, I was going to say this earlier. Is like, yeah, there were people from all walks of life at the protests, but you'll struggle with hardened atheists. Like a real Richard Dawkins type is going to struggle in this environment, I think.
I think you could be right.
Yeah, I don't think you'll find. Or my intuition says, and it's pretty much because this whole thing has hardened whatever faith is in me. I know there's something else out there. I know there's something up there because there's something very evil. That's sort of what I've concluded. Evil is very real, therefore good must be very real. And I've been on a lovely long journey with that, and the Bible is great.
Okay, and you're entirely allowed to have whatever belief makes you feel whole and satisfied and happy.
Well, there were Sikhs on the protest, and I believe
were.
Yeah, and Muslims and Jews and whatever, and also like a huge. There is a conversation going on about like what the hell is the new age, because there's a lot of people that have beliefs around chakras and stuff, and I think this is all true, but there's also an insane amount of bullshit, and it's not really one system the way that like Christianity would be. It's just a kind of sea of charlatans with some nuggets of actually pretty important stuff around the place.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
But all I'm getting at here is that an atheist is sufficiently closed-minded that I don't think they would be able to question the science.
See,
basically,
I mean, I had this conversation. One of the first people, so one of the first times I ever did one of these sorts of interviews, got into sort of this religious conversation. I won't say who it was with, right? But I was called the most Christian agnostic that they've ever encountered, because when it comes to things like my wife, my family, you know, the idea of my nuclear family and the values, I'm singing from the hymn sheet. Absolutely, I am. I think that those values are absolutely integral. I think they are necessary. I think they strengthen yourself. They strengthen your children. But then when it just comes to that idea of a deity, I'm just not there. Oh,
actually, I am increasingly dead against. So yeah, I'm like kind of team Jesus, team Bible, but I'm really off on churches. And one of the most important things to me is that you shouldn't need to worship God, because if we take the analogy of a father, if you asked your children to worship you and needed them to worship you, you would be a sadist. That is a mad request from a father.
I want my children to listen to me for their own good. But ultimately they are their own people and they have their own minds, but I do not want them to worship me. And
yeah, so like I think faith and questioning, certainly, and some sense of spirituality, some sense that like you are more than just the body and that there's these other layers going on here and stuff like that. And what the hell is a dream? I don't think anyone really understands what dreams are.
I haven't had a solid dream in about 20 years. I just switch off and switch on. It's really weird.
Nice. No, well, I mean,
it could be all the medication.
Or, well, what I'm saying is something happens when we go to sleep, and I don't think we understand what it is, and I don't trust the science. And yeah, I do. There's something deeper in it. The reason why gossip is like important, and the Dan Wootton like having a good old natter about this deviancy is actually important, is because it relates to all that stuff that you just said, which is like family. The family unit protects against all this degeneracy. The reason that it's important to like have a good look at this stuff. and not ignore it, because your gut instinct, we've been talking about this all night, is that everyone here has a good sense of being able to kind of look at someone and their manner and kind of suss out what they're about.
Yeah.
And you know whether it's going to be a good idea to invest in this connection or not. And I think what it depends on is the other person sussing you out for what they can get from you. And that's the problem with these people. Are they sizing you up to see whether you're going to be like useful to have in their crew, or are they just kind of going to discard you? Or
I don't want anything
are they
from
just
anyone.
genuinely interested in the other person?
I don't want anything from anyone. Oh, well, actually, that's a lie. I want conversation. I want to get to know people, and I want to know what other people believe, and I want to have debate, and I want to be able to hash out issues if there are, and come to a sensible conclusion and a middle ground, and find a way forward that's best for everybody around us. That's what I want to do. And also, I want to ride roller coasters.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, that's my life. That. And I've already said to Nick, if he wants, I'll get him into Fort Park for free. And I'll tell you what, if he comes along, I'll make a video.
You know, I think this is really important that you've been getting back into what you really love. Yeah, particularly a really like niche thing that actually, you know, not everyone is obsessed with. I think it's brilliant because
I'm obsessed with adrenaline.
Yeah, nice. No, I invested in some music software a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
That I haven't used in like over 10 years, and it's all just come back to me, and it's like a big toy. And it's because of that. It's like we have been very, very serious for 3 straight years because we weren't given a choice.
It's time to have fun.
Time to have fun, but time to have fun in like uniquely your way.
Yeah.
And really like, you know, don't, because we've been through this. This all comes from thinking about what the hell is going on an upper spiritual level.
It's like loads of my followers go to me, why the fuck do you go to Disneyland every 8 weeks?
You like it?
Roller coasters, baby. Roller coasters, and I've got an annual pass.
My one for that is a mosh pit now. Obviously music was my be all and end all before they tried to kill us with politics. And then that's
I'm going to answer Abby in the chat. She says, how are you after your appendix op, Ben? There's been a fuck up. That's all I will say, and I may have to go back in for another surgery after another conversation with a doctor today. I don't want to. Hopefully we can clear up the issue with some antibiotics and things can just stay where they are. They put the wrong stitching in internally as well. So it's not dissolving and it's not dissolvable. So there are infections abound. So
they just left a bit of stuff in you, didn't they?
I pulled out a load of stitching yesterday with some tweezers. I sent John a picture.
It's not good when your illness or disease is like caused by them, you know, just the very people that said, don't worry, we'll fix you.
At least I'm not going to die from appendicitis, though.
No, I know. It's annoying.
Silver linings.
I had an incredibly traumatic experience with a foot infection being misdiagnosed as just like a broken toe when I was about 12, and they just kept sending me away saying, yeah, you fractured your little toe. And actually, like, there was something really bad going on in my inner heel that eventually became a serious infection where I needed to like learn to walk again and all sorts of nastiness. But I did have this pivotal experience at age 12 where basically the NHS fucked up, and they fucked up bad and consistently, and I had a horrible time in there. And that meant that when we were supposed to praise them, it just wasn't going to wash with me because I associated it with too much trauma.
So when I was 2.5 years old, I had a terrible accident which ripped out part of my jaw, right? And I had to have reconstructive surgery. And when I got to about, I guess, age 22, this tooth here started having some real issues. And that tooth is an implant. It's fake. Because when they did that reconstructive surgery, they left bits of surgical instrument in my gum, which calcified over the course of about 20 years. and killed all of that.
It took 20 years to actually like manifest.
Well, for about 5 years it was hurting, and then they finally worked out what it was. It was calcified.
I like that Sean is like, oh, shocking, the NHS fucked up. And it's like, look, we're stuck in a situation where sometimes you got no bloody choice. And it's really scary.
Well, this is it.
You know, all I do is try and drink as much water as I can, eat loads of fruit and veg. I think I'm pretty good, but like, if something happens,
I've practically been on a carnivore diet for the last 25 years, and I'm not dead, right? But it's this stuff. This is why I'm not fat.
Vegan.
This is why I'm fat, right? It's this stuff.
It's my vice as well. I'm pretty bad. I need a bottle of Coke to get through a day's work.
I need at least an 8-pack of cherry Coke on a daily basis at this current time.
Nah, you don't need. You shouldn't use that word need.
I want.
Yeah, there you go.
I want. Really, but I don't drink alcohol, so I'm sober.
I will still drink alcohol, but it used to be every time I went to my DJ residency, and that was till 4 a.m. I did a few of them sober, but it was basically every weekend for 10 years.
Apart from 7 times, I've been sober for 14 years now.
Yeah, nice. It's different now. I've noticed I'm very, very sensitive to who I'm with and what we're doing. And like, I can sort of set the intention to go pubbing with some really decent people and have a fantastic time. And the next day, I won't have much of a hangover, and I would have got like drunk to the appropriate level. So I'm
going out to the pub with my wife and a few friends on Saturday night. We've got a babysitter, but you know what? I want to drive the car, so I'll have Coke, play pool, and sing like a twat and karaoke, and I'll do it sober. I'll have a great night. I won't have a headache. It's great.
Yeah. No, I had a really close friend who he lived with me for a period, and he was sober because I think because he didn't like the guy he turned into when he was drunk, got into trouble a lot and stuff. So he stopped drinking. We still came out to my bar and my residency till the wee hours every Saturday and hung out with everyone.
Yes.
I couldn't do it personally. I needed to get smashed to stand being in that hellhole, which I loved but wouldn't go back to because it's the old world. It's a strange thing is that you've been rediscovering your roller coasters.
I have.
I've been rediscovering what I want to do music-wise.
Well, you say rediscovering.
It's not going to be like it was.
You say rediscovering. So, at one point, we were in Tier 4 lockdown here in the South, right? Disneyland Paris was open. I got in my car, I drove to Eurotunnel, and I went to Disneyland Paris. And nobody said anything. We were in Tier 4 lockdown. And I'm over in Disneyland Paris, and I was posting publicly about it on Twitter as well. And then when I drove back, remember those things called the passenger locator form? I did not fill one out. And I got to the old passport window at the Eurotunnel, and they didn't even mention it. So, just drove on through, and and then started posting selfies from inside Poundland the next day, enjoying my 2-week quarantine, and putting them out on Twitter for the trolls to go, oh, for fuck's sake, what's he doing?
We'll just have some fun with it. I've been reminded of something Trudy asked earlier on. I think it was Trudy asked what we thought of the change your profile picture to a yellow circle to say you don't consent.
Oh, God, it's just another fucking club.
It's like we're on the same page here that don't we mock people for Ukraine flag in bio or whatever the fuck?
I mean, I'll tell you what, I had Matt Letizia on the show last week.
Yes, so right.
And he was an absolute diamond to speak to.
He is.
Really good conversation. He's coming back. We need to book that date, but he's coming back on. And I don't know why he's got himself into that, right? Now I understand what they're trying to say, absolutely, but you don't need to state it. It should just be a bloody given at this point.
Well, I think it's just like it. I remember on Abby's podcast, it was at the January protests. I wonder if she mentioned it a few times. I don't know, because we talked behind the scenes, but she basically talked about how Alistair Williams was checking the vibe of the general public and their reaction.
It was Alistair Williams that called me the most Christian agnostic.
Was it?
It was, yeah. He was the first person I ever interviewed.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh no, I mean, he's been so solid throughout all of this, and he's actually getting better all the time with his reactions to the trigger norms and stuff, and he's brilliant. But yeah, he was gauging the public reaction, and it was like, oh, it's the anti-vaxxers again. And when I saw those like little videos go out, I do not consent, the same script, I'm like, how is that any different to sort of 3 years of like this is I can't even put it into words. It's very uninspiring, and I hate to say that about stuff on my side, but like, come on.
Yeah. Sean says in the chat, you're also putting a bullseye on you, especially when you're sending letters to the PM and state telling them you're essentially a dissident. And that's a good point.
Well, I mean, Sean has the correct view and the correct framing on the state. And I was listening to your stuff in the van today, Shawnee mate, because it's just a good habit to get into.
I will say this about Sean. He has the correct view and the correct framing on quite a few things.
Well, just on state apparatus, basically, and the fact that you can never trust it, and taxation is theft and all this stuff. I just think like, this is your framework and you see everything through this lens. It's very consistent. So personally, I'm not too worried about like the state following me and keeping tabs on me and what they're gonna do to me, because I don't think I'm really giving them enough to work with. But in terms of my relationship of trust with the state, like absolutely perfect. You know, they're awful.
Yeah.
And yeah, on Abby's podcast recently, she'd been talking about the arrest and that if you haven't had it happen before, suddenly when you're at the mercy of the state, it means you've got no power.
Okay, I'm going to tell you something. You might have seen me tweeting about it recently, because I'm in a bit of a position like that. So about a year and a bit ago, I was assaulted by a police officer and arrested illegally. What he did was completely unlawful. It's on camera. We've got them banged to rights. I'm still on bail, and I will be until January the 10th, because I was supposed to have a court date for the third time last week, and for a third time the day before they cancelled the court date. Why'd they cancel it? Because they know for a fact they've got fucking nothing, so they just keep cancelling it. And also the officer involved is under formal investigation by the IOPC for what he did to me.
Yeah.
The investigation into him cannot continue and is on hold until the court has concluded. Therefore, if they can keep kicking it down the road and keeping me in a state of this, he can keep his job. He can not have criminal charges himself. I'm at the mercy of the state. I know what this feels like.
Well, I mean, the police is one of the scariest sort of mafia protection rackets that we've got. What is going on with, I mean, make no mistake of it, that the dominoes falling, Schofield, Edwards, Wootton, is because of one another, right? There was no chance of the Edwards thing coming out without the Schofield thing coming out first. And like, this is all going in a chain, and these people are scurrying to protect one another.
Yeah.
And I do find, like, I haven't done many deep dives on the Met. I know Sean has been fantastic for it, but like, man, these cases of Met officers charged with rape and other really high levels.
There seem to be a lot of bad eggs in the police. They really do.
It's not just that it's bad eggs, but it's that
it's institutional almost.
If anything is going to have the apparatus to protect its own, it's going to be the police.
Yeah.
They've got all the resources they need to make sure that any of their boys can basically get away with anything if they need to, compared to other organizations. They've got all of the cards. And so that is why you should you should treat them as a threat. It's not nice that we walk around like fearing the police, because I've felt that from a young age.
I fear the police. Look,
I know, and it's not nice. We shouldn't, because I'm not a criminal.
No, I'm not a criminal either. In fact, I'm a victim at the hands of a criminal, and yet I'm the one being punished.
Yeah.
And I just want to address Trudy in the chat. She says, "Where's the video? Can you release it yet?" I am still in talks with my solicitor. She doesn't want me releasing it,
No.
but I am holding firm that I want to. So we need to work out what I can.
Yeah, never feel too pressured just because you've got a online output to divulge everything with everyone.
Well, I think people need to see this.
I think they probably do. They probably do. I just mean that it can just get tough when you're in this position, when you're sharing literally everything.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, I get that. It's just in this particular circumstance, I've gotten banged to rights. I've got the video. I've got it in. It's right here in my hand. Right?
In my head, I'm imagining something like the video when Jam for Freedom got rammed in Hyde Park.
It's worse than that, because I was just sitting calmly in my car. And he comes in, puts his arm in, takes my keys out, opens my door, dislocates both my shoulders, and then throws me to the floor.
I remember interviewing a lot of people like you, and they tended to not be such young, fit, 6 foot, able-bodied people like myself.
Well, I'm a disabled man, and they knew I was. First of all, they already knew I was physically disabled, and second of all, they already knew I was autistic, and that's what they did to me.
I interviewed several people that were disabled that had experiences like that. I interviewed several retired women who, like pension-age women.
I don't doubt it.
I didn't interview a single person who looked like me.
I do not doubt it.
It's crazy. Constantine Kitten's in the chat. Amazing. I'm really happy to see Constantine in tonight. Trigonometry is very gay. You're not impressed.
I'm not gonna. I'm not impressed. Are you not entertained? No, not really.
Look, it's going to be a great week or couple of weeks for it. To be honest, it's just a fantastic year for nonces being exposed.
What I think we need to do,
celebrate that. What
I think we need to do is this Martin Branning situation it's new, okay? It's new, and
it's breaking.
The Byline Times have said that more is coming. So do you want to come back next Tuesday if there's more?
Well, I wonder whether we should wait for a Byline Times thing. Do you think it will drop within days?
If there's more, we come back and we do it again.
There's certainly more coming. I'm just wondering if it's going to happen before the end of the week. What do we reckon, guys? Do you reckon the Byline Times is good? And can I get a 1 in chat if you support the Byline Times on this issue? Because like, when I did the original post about it, I just put "let's fucking go," because like, burn GB News to the ground by all means, burn BBC to the ground by any means necessary.
Metaphorically, YouTube censors.
Huh?
I said metaphorically, YouTube censors. Metaphorically,
in Minecraft. No, it is metaphorical. I'd like obviously no terrorism in that, but like. I want to see it collapse, and this looks too big. Dan looked shook. He did. He said, "I'm a victim of abuse." That's just not a counterclaim to what you're alleged to have done.
Well, no.
Actually, like no one is
what
disputing
he didn't
that
say.
He's never been in. Nobody is disputing that Dan Wootton has never been in an abusive relationship. What they're wondering is who's Martin Branning. That's what we want to know.
And like I said, it's what he didn't say, and it's what, and it's not just what he didn't say. It's the fact that he said and alluded to the fact that he had done some wrong things, and that he'd learned and grown from them. Now, what are those things?
Well, in terms of the auto cue speech that you give, is that just something you say to garner sympathy? Because the whole
Or
thing was.
is that something to say that you are Martin Branning? Because he never said he wasn't.
If he's Martin Branning, there's no getting out of this.
Right? He never said he wasn't. First of all.
But the name was, yeah, I suppose.
Second of all, he said there are some things I cannot say because my lawyers will not let me. And believe me, I know exactly what he's talking about. I'm trying to release a video.
More thrill. Yeah.
I'm trying to release a video.
All sorts of reasons.
Yep. I'm trying to release a video. My lawyers will not let me.
Most important point there. Remember, these are all Sun journalists, not the most trustworthy individuals. This is why I'm rooting for it to collapse, is because there's no limit to the dirtiness that the Sun and the Mail and the News of the World and all of this was willing to go through. And I knew this from such a young age. I can remember, like, Reading Festival, right? I think I'm 16, okay? And the lineup goes Slayer, My Chemical Romance, Placebo, and Pearl Jam. And I want to see 3 out of those 4 bands. I don't really want to see My Chemical Romance, but I'm quite young. So I sit through it and I'm like, oh, it's emo, it's rubbish. I hate it because it's emo. It's not cool like Slayer. But there's one bit of it where the frontman goes on a rant about how the Daily Mail has published an article or a series of articles basically accusing that band of being a suicide cult, which is unreasonable.
I'd say so.
Yeah, pretty damn unreasonable. And the girls that were really into My Chemical Romance at the time, they got something from it. I don't know what it was, but they listened to the Black Parade and they felt a real catharsis and felt like Gerard Way was speaking to them. Whatever, let them have that, right? Let them have that little moment. And he got the whole crowd to chant "Fuck the Daily Mail," and I couldn't not join in with it, even though I'm like, I'm a punk, I like metal, I don't like emo. You know what? I'm with you there. And so I knew at such a young age the Daily Mail is like absolute scum. The Sun is absolute scum, like Hillsborough and all of that. It's bad. It's really, really bad. And Dan Wootton is a man who climbed to the very, very top of that. And that's like with Piers Morgan and the others. You can't get there by being honourable. You can only get there by being dishonourable. So
unfortunately, I think you're right. And, before we conclude this, I just want to say something about the state of media today and the state of journalism today. And I say this sort of thing often, but there's people in tonight that aren't usually in. So I think this message needs to hit home. I think journalism is extremely important. I think it's one of the most important professions in the world. But I think what passes itself off as journalism today is not only corrupted, it is absolutely disgraceful. Now, we were talking about this earlier, the old journalistic method of check your source, make sure you get a second source, and then make sure that that source has another source before you come out and state something as a fact. Now, that is something I like to subscribe to. It's like the Hugh Edwards thing. You didn't find us talking about it while it was all going on. Because we didn't know what the facts were. And it's the same with this Dan Wootton situation. Whilst I have opined, I have made sure that those things are coming across as opinion. I'm looking into the things that he has said or hasn't said. I'm looking in the statements he has made. But I'm not sure. Now, I'm not saying he is Martin Branning. I'm not saying he's not. I'm saying right now, I have not seen the physical evidence to say that he is, but I also trust that if any kind of media outlet is going to put what could potentially be the ruin of them on the line to make such salacious allegations, maybe they've got something.
I think this is, what you said about real journalism is like,
it's dead.
Well, I don't know that it is, because I try my best and you try your best, and
it's dead in the mainstream.
Well, this is what I'm getting at, is I do believe that sometimes you will see something which is telling the truth about something.
Yes.
About something. And so that's what I believe we're seeing on Byline Times. And that's what I believe. That's what I believe. But and I actually do believe it does look like rigorous journalism, where if their claims are true, then it looks like they've been working with some people that have had some rotten lives and some rotten luck and been through some really nasty stuff.
Yeah.
And working with them in the same way that this is what journalists should do. And actually, this is why when it comes to the Andrew Tate thing, I was pretty blown away by the Vice documentary. And Vice have written my name in articles like smearing me because of the Mark Collett connection. And I will note, Vice did not lie about me in any way. They didn't make anything up. But at the same time, like Vice, screw Vice. We hate Vice.
There are going to be many things that me and you will politically disagree on. But that does not matter, because I'm able to have a civil and a cheerful conversation with you. And I am able to spend time with you as a friend. So
that is true.
So,
well, all I'm pointing out is that these things have started happening where actually people that are my sworn enemy have suddenly been pumping out like good work that I approve of. So the Byline Times does this, and I don't think that this is just a plot to bring down GB News. I think that they're probably helping some very traumatized people. I think if we actually look at this beyond the gossip,
I believe there is an element of that, as we spoke about earlier. Yeah. But I also believe if it can bring down GB News, they're not going to shy away from that.
That's true. That's probably the incentive for doing it. That's probably their reason behind it. Vice, in the case of Andrew Tate, it's like their goal is to bring down Andrew Tate. Oh my God, that's fine by me. And I was. It's so funny because the guy that made that documentary has been nominated for LGBTQ plus Ally of the Year for like services to that community by combating what Andrew Tate is doing. And this is where the left-right split is like, if you spent your whole Pride Month like Calvin and Loza sharing bloody shit about Regent Street and all the rest of it. And what's happening at the moment is you're giving things to the other side. So you're letting the left say we're going to take down the predators. First, you're trying to ban Sound of Freedom.
But the thing is, I still consider myself to be at least slightly left of centre, and I always have done.
Well, whatever that means, because I think you're an anarchist.
Well, yeah. But
yeah, which means like you can't be. Yeah, it's because there's a social axis and an economic axis. Yeah, the economic axis would say like communism, which I'm dead against, and the social axis, I guess, is from So I get what you mean, like liberal.
Well, the thing is, when it comes to things like Pride Month, right, and this might be upsetting to some people, right, I just ignored it. I just ignored it. Right, because if people want to go out and celebrate and have their little celebration, right, I'm not a member of the LGBT community. It's nothing to do with me. And I've got no problem as long as people don't want to come and, like, keep me up till all hours God sends and they don't want to drag my kids into it. I don't care. That's just my personal opinion, right? Because I don't care who you love. I don't care who you're with. I don't care if you're gay, straight. You want to have a tensum in your bedroom with a load of consenting adults. Yeah, fill your boots, have fun. I mean, that
it's the point with the Pride stuff is it's not interesting. If who is it was it John Waters I interviewed? I think it was the Irish author John Waters who said that someone like came up to someone to try and offend someone on their right-wing bigoted side by going, "I'm gay. Is that a problem to you?" And the guy just responded, "Is that all you are?" As in, like, so what do you do? Yeah. Like, you an artist? Do you writer? What do you do? What do you do for a living? How do you fill your time? What are you most proud of? I'm gay. Right. Okay.
I don't care.
How does a gay spend one's time then?
I know that, we're supposed to care. We're supposed to care. But I'm of the ilk, and I was brought up to just not care what somebody looked like or who they loved. I care about the content of their character and their actions. That's what I care about.
I think we know at this point that someone said they're hiding the sexuality behind the homo and coming for kids. That's all the agenda is. It's like you hide behind the oppressed, marginalized, like, oh, gay people have it so hard, so we need to teach children about having sex. Anal sex.
We don't need
It's
to
like,
teach children
yeah.
about having any sex, heterosexual or
No, but this-
LGBT.
No, but I believe on a deeper level, there's a very, very big push to get people to use the anus as a sex organ when it's not designed for that, and that goes for gay people, straight people, all over it. It's not good for you. Not good for you to do that. I don't think you should do that.
And you're perfectly entitled to believe that. You are.
On that bombshell.
Yeah. Look, you're perfectly
No, but it's-
you're perfectly
Yeah.
entitled to believe that, right? And the thing is, as long as you don't want to force someone else to believe what you believe, what's the problem?
Well, society is the American Empire wants to force the world to accept sodomy. You do know that.
I don't understand why, but I see aspects of this.
It's odd, and it's not like I look at Uganda going, Africans unite against sodomy,
Well,
and things like, oh, same-sex attracted people. I have no real of course I don't have a problem with that, because I don't think you can control it. I'm specifically talking about abuse of that, and America has been going around the world trying to impose gay rights on whichever country it can find, and it's interesting. It's interesting because the framing is we must save the gays from being thrown off rooftops. But if you look at where we are now, I mean, do you really think all the Dan Wootton, Schofield stuff would have even been possible if these people were just faithful to their wives?
Well, no.
There we go. There we go. It's degeneracy in all angles. Everything's fine. Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. Anything but procreative sex that creates children.
Well, you know what? I'm quite proud of the fact that I have procreated on more than one occasion.
Well done.
And I will say this, there is nothing like being a parent. It's one of the hardest, most rewarding and fascinating things. Especially as an autistic man, I'm just fascinated by my children quite often. But it's one of the most rewarding things you can do. And I would advocate being a parent if you can be. But I'm not going to force that on anybody. But I'm just saying that's my experience, and I hope that everybody can have it.
Well, they want as few people to have that as possible.
Well, there's been a concerted effort to stop us procreating. I mean, look at things like they took a little leaf out of the communist China playbook, didn't they, when they created the the 2-child limit when it come to help in this country. I
mean, well, all roads sort of point to no children. All of the different agendas, whether it's like climate antinatalism, the trans agenda, just mutilating the genitals off of people so they're never going to be able to procreate, vaccine effects on fertility, I can just go on and on and on. It's all to stop you being fruitful and multiplying, which does not mean that that's the be all and end all.
No,
because I don't think you really have much control over this. I don't think you really. I believe in God, whether or not you do, Ben, and that means I don't believe you have much control over who you fall in love with and how many kids you're going to have. I think a huge amount of that is given to you.
Okay, well, on that bombshell, I think it's time to wrap this up. We've been going for over 2 hours, man.
I know, it's been fun. I do have to get up and go to work early, so I'm slightly worried.
I have to get up at around 5:30 and help with the school run.
Nice, enjoy. Sounds awful.
It is pretty awful. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty damn awful. Yeah.
I love what I'm at. Before the lockdown and all of that, I was in an office every day, and now I'm doing a very physical job where I'm just in rich people's gardens.
Sean says one of us should come on his UNN show tomorrow.
Oh, all right. I don't think I've got anything on. I need to chat to Sean before too long. I've already been chatting to him behind the scenes, but saying I want to get Sean on for a nice 60 minutes with me at least, because he does tend to be right about everything.
Vaughan says, bloody good show, chaps. One of the best combos.
Lovely.
Sean says, just one!
Well, I mean, yeah, I think this is going to be part of a series. I think basically I should come back when the next Byline Times.
I agree. I agree. And then in the meantime, we do need to sort some music out.
Well, I'm getting the Jam for Freedom Festival out of the way. That's my next. I'm practicing my sets for that.
Right.
Because I'm playing Thursday and the Friday night at that. I'm DJing, which is like going to be so fun. And then I've written one song. I might try and write 2 or 3 more, but I want to kind of get them absolutely perfect to maybe release in sort of January time with a video and all that. Do some proper music. So it's quite long term.
I'm thinking long term for some of the stuff I'm writing as well. You know, I'm not going to release my Julia song onto the world until it's perfect.
Nice. Well, no, Bully Bragg and the Bastards are going to take over.
On that note, thank you one and all for joining us. If you have enjoyed it, then please hit that like button, or smash that like button, as they say on this degenerate platform. Consider joining us in our fictional country of Veradora, meaning you can become an essential patron at ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/chasing Dissent. Come join us. We're live at the moment 3 or 4 nights a week, so come and join us. Make sure you're subscribed and all that lark, and let's have a laugh together. I just want to say thank you, Nick, for joining us.
Yeah.
And
no, it's been awesome. Always is, man. Always a pleasure.
Tell these people before we go where they can find you if they don't already know.
I'm banned from a lot of places, so I have everything on my website, which is jacked.uk, which doesn't have an E in it. JACKD.uk, and I've tried to arrange like everything I've done over the past few years so that you can kind of click around and have fun with it and explore. And do have fun with it as well, because there's a lot of good stuff on there, and it's all banned from YouTube. So,
on that note, thank you, Nick, and thank you, everybody. And as always, it's been great for you.
'Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yo, I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave.